Hello. I'm not sure if we're going to have some noise in the background. My dog seems to be calming down with her rabbit toy that squeaks, but she looks like she might be calming down. But there's thunder, and every time she hears thunder, she starts barking. So I'm hoping that it's quiet. Welcome to the 7th lesson from the book of Judges. And we will be looking basically in chapter 20 of Judges. I haven't really showed this since the beginning, where the first lesson, the intro, where I told you where you could print one out if you wanted one for yourself, or download it and have it on your device to look at. But I just thought I would show you where we are now. We have completed chapter 1, chapter 2, this part of chapter 3, and then this 17 and 18, and nothing. We've done one chapter of the 3 back at here. That, I agree, very disturbing, absolutely horrible. Anyway, so we're in the middle of that. Last chapter, which was chapter 19, was, as far as I'm concerned, probably the most, what's the word? Notice I don't have this all written down. I do the research and I have a few notes here, but it was the most disturbing. It was the most disturbing of all of them. This chapter has a totally different disturbing element to it. Last chapter we had basically a woman tortured to death. That's what it was. This chapter we're going to see the decision that the Israelites make, and what that decision leads to. And so we're going to just kind of go into that. I will show you a couple maps to bring you up to date. As we learned in the last chapter, there was a Levite from the hill country of Ephraim who took a concubine. She was unfaithful to him, left him, and went back home to her parents who lived in Bethlehem in Judah. And after 4 months, he went there looking for her to bring her home. No great love there, just, obviously if he left her there for 4 months, again, no great love. And then on their way back, the men wanted to assault him in the city of Gibeah, and he throws her out into the street, and they basically torture her in many different ways to death. And this Levite from Ephraim basically couldn't care less except for what it means to himself. And so he cuts up her body into 12 pieces and sends it out. And so that's where we are. All of Israel who receives pieces comes and meets in Mizpah, so you got Bethlehem, Jerusalem, Gibeah, not to be confused with Gibeon. You got Bethel and Shiloh there, which is the area where God's tabernacle would normally be kept. There you go again. We got Bethel and Shiloh. But this red circle right here is approximately where you would find the city of Mizpah. And that is where they have congregated. And that's where we're going to join them. Chapter 20, beginning with verse 8. All the men rose up together as one, saying, "None of us will go home. No, not one of us will return to his house. But now this is what we'll do to Gibeah. We'll go up against it in the order decided by casting lots. We'll take 10 men out of every 100 from all the tribes of Israel, and 100 from 1,000, and 1,000 from 10,000 to get provisions for the army. Then when the army arrives at Gibeah in Benjamin, it can give them what they deserve for this outrageous act done in Israel. So all the Israelites got together and united as one against the city. The tribes of Israel sent messengers throughout the tribe of Benjamin, saying, "What about this awful crime that was committed among you? Now turn those wicked men of Gibeah over to us so that we may put them to death and purge the evil from Israel." We're going to stop there. That's our first stop. Up to now, it sounds like a righteous indignation. This is in a couple places in the Pentateuch. Let's look at Deuteronomy 22. Deuteronomy chapter 22, beginning with verse 27. Deuteronomy 22, beginning with verse 25. "But if out in the country a man happens to meet a young woman pledged to be married and rapes her, only the man who has done this shall die. Do nothing to the woman. She has committed no sin deserving death. This case is like that of someone who attacks and murders a neighbor. For the man found the young woman out in the country, and though the betrothed woman screamed, there was no one to rescue her." So basically, as far as God is concerned, if a man rapes a woman, then he is the only one who is culpable. It is not her fault that she could not fight him off. It is not her fault that no one came to her rescue, which is very different than some religions in the world today. And so this is what God expects. The perpetrator is to be put to death. Okay? Remember that thought. Now we jump all the way back to Genesis 34, to a time when something like this happened. Chapter 34 of Genesis, and I'm not going to read it all. It's the story of Dinah and the Shechemites, the people from Shechem, which is actually right there. But this is centuries earlier. She is one of the sisters, or the sister, of the 12 brothers who end up making up the different tribes of Israel. She is the daughter of Jacob. And she, one of the men in Shechem, the prince, or the son of Hamor the Hivite, the ruler of that area, saw her, he took her and raped her. So the story goes on, and her brother finds out about it. She tries to hide it, the shame and all. And he finds out, and he and his group decide that they're going to take this to account. The guy says he's fallen in love with her, wants to marry her, and so the brother tells him, "Well, we couldn't let her marry anyone who's not uncircumcised or who isn't circumcised. So if you and all your men in Shechem are circumcised, then we will allow her to marry her." And so what they did was they waited until all these men got circumcised, which is painful in a delicate area, and then went into the city and killed them all in retaliation. Again, they did not just kill the perpetrator, they killed all the men. This is not God's will. And that brother ended up in trouble and having problems later. So these are examples from that they would have known in the time of Judges. This is hundreds of years earlier. They know these stories. They've heard them all their lives. And so it's like, but are they paying attention? Remember, this is a time when Israel has no king, which is a euphemism of saying Israel was not recognizing God as they should as their king. So, right at this point, they are acting, this massive 400,000 warriors with swords are acting righteously up till now. They are wanting the perpetrators. They want the Benjamites to give them the guys who did this so that they can kill them. And that's it. That's all they're asking, is just for the ones who did this horrible thing. They want to cleave it out of existence in the nation of Israel. So this is, actually okay. Vengeance, but directed to the perpetrator, not en masse. But the reaction of the Benjamites is not exactly what it should have been. Let's look at what their response is, beginning in the middle of verse 13, chapter 20. But the Benjamites would not listen to their fellow Israelites. From their towns they came together at Gibeah to fight against the Israelites. At once the Benjamites mobilized 26,000 swordsmen from their towns, in addition to 700 able young men from those living in Gibeah. Among all these soldiers, there were 700 select troops who were left-handed, each of whom could sling a stone at a hare and not miss. And they're talking about this kind of hare, not a rabbit hare. So their response is, no, we're going to fight you. How dare you tell us what we should do? So basically, they are siding with these men. They are protecting them from righteous vengeance. What God said is the response, the correct response for rape. We continue. Verse 17. This chapter is a lot of reading and not too much commentary near the beginning and near the end, but in the middle it's a lot of reading. So we go on. Israel, apart from Benjamin, mustered 400,000 swordsmen, all of them fit for battle. So we have 26,700 on one side and 400,000 on the other. The Israelites went up to Bethel and inquired of God. Bethel, right here. They were in Mizpah, they met together, but then they went to Bethel and inquired of God. They said, who of us is to go up first to fight against the Benjamites? Now this is an actual, if you remember, it's often what they ask God when they're going into battle, say which tribe is going first. And every time I've read it now in Judges, the reply is, the Lord replied, Judah shall go first. Why in the world is Judah always going first? But Judah is going first. Excuse me. So the next morning, the Israelites got up and pitched camp near Gibeah. The Israelites went out to fight the Benjamites and took up battle positions against them at Gibeah. The Benjamites came out of Gibeah and cut down 22,000 Israelites on the battlefield that day. 26,700 kill 22,000. But the Israelites encouraged one another and again took up their positions where they had stationed themselves the first day. The Israelites went up and wept before the Lord. They said, shall we go up again to fight against the Benjamites, our fellow Israelites? Okay, they've lost 22,000 men in one day. That's a bloodbath. That's Civil War type numbers. And it is a civil war, but I'm talking about the U.S. Civil War. all seems dire. It's like, are we doing the right thing? It's just like, oh no, we've lost 22,000. They basically, it's almost every Benjamite soldier, almost everyone killed someone in that one day. Shall we go up again to fight against the Benjamites, our fellow Israelites? The Lord answered, go up against them. Then the Israelites drew near to Benjamin the second day. This time when the Benjamites came out from Gibeah to oppose them, they cut down another 18,000 Israelites, all of them armed with swords. So now, on the second day, another 18,000 Israelites are killed. That's 40,000 men in 2 days. Sometimes we feel like everything is going against us, and everything is going against us, and it repeats, and it continues, and it doesn't make any sense. Verse 26. Then all the Israelites, the whole army, went up to Bethel, and there they sat weeping before the Lord. They fasted that day until evening and presented burnt offerings and fellowship offerings to the Lord. And the Israelites inquired of the Lord. In those days, the Ark of the Covenant of God was there. And so it's like, inquired of the Lord, with Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, ministering before it. So Phinehas, the grandson of Aaron, so he is an actual descendant of Aaron. So he actually is a priest, not a Levite, but an actual priest. He is actually the grandson of Aaron. So he would be the great grandson of Moses. Okay? Or great nephew. Sorry, great nephew of Moses. Sometimes I just talk, and I've noticed in the last one, I said something and I knew it was, I rewatched it afterwards and it was wrong, but I did correct myself later in it. So I said, okay, I'll just leave it, because I do correct myself. So if you watch the whole thing, if you cut out early, you're going to miss out on me correcting myself. And it's actually worse in Spanish. The tenses, I get like, oh my gosh, why did I say it that way? Anyway, so they go up to the Ark of the Covenant. They make sacrifices. They fast all day, and they inquire of the Lord through Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron. They asked, shall we go up again to fight against the Benjamites, our fellow Israelites, or not? It's like sometimes in our lives, things are going like this and going like this, and we're here like, are we, it's like, God told me to do, I feel that this is where God is leading me, but it's not, doesn't seem to be going right. What is wrong? What is wrong? What is, am I doing something wrong? It's like, I'm trying. Am I doing it? And here they're saying, shall we go up against them again? We've lost 40,000. That's 10% of all of those who came, against a 15-1 odds. They're fighting less than 27,000 men with 400,000, and in 2 days they kill 40,000 of us. Should we do this? Should we keep on getting hurt and killed? The Lord responded, go, for tomorrow I will give them into your hands. When things seem like they don't make sense to go ahead, God tells you, do it. I will be with you. Things will come out the best tomorrow. Follow me. Listen to what I say. Verse 29, then Israel set an ambush around Gibeah. They went up against the Benjamites on the third day and took up positions against Gibeah as they had done before. The Benjamites came out to meet them and were drawn away from the city. They began to inflict casualties on the Israelites as before, so that about 30 men fell in the open field and on the roads. The road leading to Bethel, and the other to Gibeah. While the Benjamites were saying, "We're defeating them as before," the Israelites were saying, "Let's retreat and draw them away from the city to the roads." They're following the same directive, but they're coming at it from a different direction, a different way of doing it. Maybe that frontal assault was not the right way. And so now they're drawing them away. And did you miss it when it said on the third day they took up positions against Gibeah, the city, as they had done before? But before that, in verse 29, Israel set an ambush around Gibeah. So this is different. They've set up an ambush around the city. But from the Benjamites' viewpoint, they're just seeing the same setup as the last 2 days outside. And they're like, "Oh, yeah, let's go do it again." And so they're drawing them away from the city, their protection, their chance to run back in. And remember, you have some set up to ambush the city. 33, all the men of Israel moved from their places and took up positions at Baal Tamar. And the Israelite ambush charged out of its place on the west of Gibeah. Then 10,000 of Israel's able young men made a frontal attack on Gibeah. The fighting was so heavy that the Benjamites did not realize how near disaster was. The Lord defeated Benjamin before Israel, and on that day the Israelites struck down 25,100 Benjamites, all armed with swords. Then the Benjamites saw that they were beaten. I'm going to stop there for a second. So we had 10,000 men laying in, ready to ambush. When the rest of the army draws the Benjamites out of the city into the roads, it opens up the city for a frontal attack. And so they come out and attack. And between what's going on in Gibeah and what's going on out in the open, they end up killing 25,100 Benjamites. Now the men of Israel had given way before Benjamin because they relied on the ambush they had set near Gibeah. It's like they're going to make it look like we're retreating and falling back because we're scared of these Benjamites. But they knew there was an ambush set for Gibeah. Those who had been in ambush made a sudden dash into Gibeah, spread out, and put the whole city to the sword. Killed everyone inside. The Israelites had arranged with the ambush that they should set up a great cloud of smoke from the city, and then the Israelites could counterattack. The Benjamites had begun to inflict casualties on the Israelites, about 30, and they said, "We are defeating them," as in the first battle. But when the column of smoke began to rise from the city, the Benjamites turned and saw the whole city going up in smoke. Then the Israelites counterattacked, and the Benjamites were terrified because they realized that disaster had come on them. Remember, even though 40,000 have been killed, there's still 360,000 armed soldiers fighting up now against a much smaller. Even if they hadn't killed anyone yet, it would only be 26,000. But some have died now. So they realized that disaster had come on them. So they fled before the Israelites in the direction of the wilderness, but they could not escape the battle. And the Israelites who came out of the towns cut them down there. They surrounded the Benjamites, chased them, and easily overran them in the vicinity of Gibeah on the east. 18,000 Benjamites fell, all of them valiant fighters. I'm going to stop there for a second. The 25,000 mentioned earlier, that's the total there. We're starting off here, splitting it up to better understand it. So 18,000 of the Benjamites fall, all of them valiant fighters. They fought, they died. Okay. Now, at this point, when they're running away, Israel has won. They have killed everyone in Gibeah. They have the vengeance. They have paid, cleaned that the evil that was in that city. It is gone. It is dead. Yet, verse 45, as they turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, the Israelites cut down 5,000 men along the roads. They kept pressing after the Benjamites as far as Gidom and struck down 2,000 more. On that day, 25,000 Benjamite swordsmen fell, all of them valiant fighters. But 600 of them turned and fled into the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, where they stayed for months. The first 18,000 were fighting a righteous fight. But when the Benjamites start fleeing for their lives, the war is over. The battle is done. Yet the Israelites keep after them and kill another 7,000 on the road as they're trying to get out into the desert. Only 600 out of the 26,000 are left alive. It could have been 7,600, but they killed them. And then, verse 48, the men of Israel went back to Benjamin and put all the towns to the sword, including the animals and everything else they found. All the towns they came across, they set on fire. Overkill. This is not what God said. God said the perpetrators, they're the ones who deserve the death. Because you've just killed, with rape, you kill the soul. You hurt someone so deeply. So death is right, okay. But the perpetrator. In this case, if the Benjamin tribe had given over the men who had done this, then we've gone on and we'd have 65,000 men alive that are now dead between the two sides. But because the Benjamites said, no, we're going to protect them. We're going to, this is our city and you can't come in and tell us what to do. They end up with 600 men hiding out in the wilderness, and every other man, woman, child, and animal in all of their cities are now dead. Overkill. The men in Gibeah sinned. The Benjamites sinned. And the Israelites who started off righteous with righteous indignation, righteous anger at what had happened, have now become murderers themselves. They have sinned. Why? Because in those days Israel had no king. They gave lip service to God, but they weren't actually listening to him and doing his will. There are a lot of people in this world who give lip service to God, but they're not doing his will. They're not listening to him. When Jesus says in the New Testament, people are going to come up to him in heaven at the judgment and say, Lord, Lord. And he goes, I don't know you. Why? Because you gave lip service, but you didn't do what you were supposed to do, which was accept Jesus and follow his will. So here we have all of these deaths. Just in the battle, it's over 65,000 men dead. And then you count all of the cities in Benjamin, in the land of Benjamin. Okay, let me show you. It's a small area, but all of this area, every Israeli city in this area, everyone was put to death, and every city burned. They left nothing. They left ruins. And there are 600 men hiding out in the wilderness, and they are the only descendants of Benjamin, Jacob's baby son, Joseph's baby brother. There are only 600 left alive in the entire world at that time. And, you know, it's what's the lesson here? There's several, including the fact that, first of all, you don't give up when when it seems like the way gets tough, or it doesn't seem like it's going somewhere. But if God is directing you in a certain direction, it will turn out, and it did. But then you need to stop and stay where God has put you, rather than, oh, okay, I got it. Let me just go on ahead and keep on doing this. It's like, no. There's a start and a stop. And there's a don't give in when things get tough. And don't overstep. When God stops, when the righteousness is, this is where we're going to go, and you're like in momentum. Okay, let's go. It's like, no. And oh my gosh, I did not turn on my thing, and I'm 3 minutes over. So I'm going to stop there, because that's the end of what we're looking at for today. Anyway, I want you to read 19, 20, and 21 again as your assignment for the next lesson, and I'll see you then. The story continues. Bye.